I don't think 5 light years is going to be enough of a difference to warrant having it in the script. They say we need to go not 4 light years. Oops, I did it 9 away. You owe me 5. What are you talking about? Welcome to Season 4, Episode 10, The Galactic Barrier. Discovery, that is. We are discovering the Galactic Barrier. For those of you who don't know, the Galactic Barrier has appeared previously in Star Trek, namely TOS, but interestingly, although Admiral Vance says we've never been past the Galactic Barrier, I seem to recall a few instances of a ship leaving the galaxy. I believe multiple times in TOS, and at least once in TNG. I won't get into it here because, frankly, it is beyond the purview of this video. But I will point out that while early in the episode it is made clear that no ships have gone past the barrier, a character later on in this episode says, like, wow, few people have seen this, or something to that effect. They say the word few. And then in the description for this episode, it even says that few people have been beyond the barrier. So one of these lines was written earlier. They realized it was a mistake, didn't go back and fix it, and gave someone a different line to clean it up. One person is saying no one's been this far, and in at least 2 other instances, one of them on screen, apparently few people have been this far. So they tried to save face, maybe, once they realized that people have been beyond the barrier through standard conventional propulsion or otherwise. That being said, it's only a nitpick. It doesn't ruin this episode. This episode is ruined by other things that we're going to get into. I will say that this episode feels better than it thinks. If you would permit me the parlance, this episode watches better when you don't think about it very hard. There is internal logic in this episode that is strange. A lot of useless scenes, but on the whole, I didn't really hate it. I'm feeling comfortable at this point in saying that Season 4 is the best season of Discovery yet. I think I can admit that. However, this season is good despite itself. Past seasons of Discovery were bad because of itself. What do I mean by that? This season has 13 episodes. You're making only 13 episodes, and it drags. We are stalling for time when all we have is 13 episodes to get it across. So, nothing's really happening, but a good nothing is a lot better than a bad something, which permeated the first 3 seasons. Too much happening, too much going on, and all of it bad. Now, nothing's really happening, but it's not horrible. That's one hell of an upgrade. So, without further ado, let's dig down right into the meat and potatoes of the Galactic Barrier. Not a very interesting name. In our opening scene, we're setting up this idea that first contact is going to go in some strange or alien way, and for a brief moment I was on board. I was saying, yeah, first contact, this could be interesting. Dr. Kovich is saying, however we think it's going to go, it's not going to go that way, and we're going to be confused. And here's Dr. Harai, who will do nothing else in this episode, so hopefully we'll see him in the next episode. He seemed kind of cool. He was an expert on languages and all that. I don't know, don't ask me about that stuff. I wear a different color shirt than that. But Suffice to say, we have these communicators on the table, some of them old, some of them new, getting across the idea that so far our translations have been working on the assumption that we are dealing with beings that speak in a similar way to us, reference similar objects, similar physics. Basically, we're taking a lot for granted. And there has been instances before where the translator did not work. Okay? That has happened before in Star Trek, but we're not going to get into that here. We're setting up this theme that First Contact is going to be fascinating, as it were. For the first time in forever, it feels like Discovery is discovering something. Imagine that. If this show was littered with cool discoveries and brave new worlds, civilizations, cultures, I would have loved it. That's my favorite thing about Star Trek, is finding new things, new species. Hopefully the 10C is going to prove worthwhile. Maybe, we'll see. It appears that the president of the Federation, Lara Rilak, is going on this envoy to the 10C, and makes me wonder, if the 10C are going to be so different, why would they believe she's the president of the Federation? Are they just going to take them for granted? They already destroyed one of the DMAs. Of course, it was replaced with a new one. A stronger and better one, mind you. We don't know if the process was automatic. But, again, assumptions. Assumptions are one of the key themes of this season. We're assuming the 10C is sentient. We're assuming that they're going to believe us when we go there, when we say we're representing the whole galaxy. Which, by the way, galaxies are big. I don't know how we're really representing an entire galaxy. I mean, anything could have happened in 1,000 years. You know, we've jumped ahead in the future. Anything could have happened, but we've assembled our envoy of diplomats, delegates, crew members, officers, you name it, and we're heading on in. We're going to the barrier. We're going to the edge. Okay? I'm going to cover what happens with Michael and Co., separate from Book, and Co., that being Tarka. But we need an antimatter shield around our ship to go through the barrier, because the barrier is, I guess, comprised of antimatter, or at least matter with a negative polarity to it, such that if we had a shield of antimatter, it would reflect the barrier and we'd be able to get through without dying. Okay? So we're going to make it simple and just say we need antimatter on our ship. Pronto. And we get it, because we are the Federation and we have antimatter galore. Very interesting effects, by the way, when we're going into the Galactic Barrier field. Interesting effects when Discovery is passing through these bubbles of normal space or something. How they explain it is like there's this gigantic cellular structure of the barrier with some blobs of normal space and other blobs of bad space that we can't fly through. And we fly into these bubbles and it just pushes us through like it's some kind of a crossroad or some kind of traffic jam. It's all very nebulous, but interesting to look at. So I will say that this episode is not a complete visual slog like a lot of episodes of Discovery are. Discovery mostly has a ship in a bottle plot this episode. We're mostly just going through the barrier. We're going from point A to point B. Not much happens, but yet there is like 4 scenes between Michael and the president of the Federation, and I think all 4 are pretty much useless. We're under the guise of making emotional progress with each other and figuring out where our priorities lie and where my authority ends and yours begins with regards to who's in control of the ship. A lot of these things could just be assumed by their job title: captain, president, You would be forgiven for inferring that they would already know what their jobs were, but this is Discovery and we don't know what we're doing. So because of that, we need to have on-the-fly discussions about who gets to do what. I would think that the captain would immediately hand over control of executive decisions to the president. The president was elected to be the head of the executive branch of the United Federation of Planets. Okay? I think that supersedes captain, but I can also see the captain maybe saying, listen, with matters of getting from here to there, you will make all the decisions. When we contact the 10C, I take over. That's the compromise I would have went with, but instead we went with some confusing spaghetti plot of we're going on this emotional journey to understand our priorities and how we can work together, and we're doing everything we can to have Michael supersede the president's authority. That's what we're doing, but we're trying to bring it to the viewer under the guise of them being in complete agreement all the time, which obviously doesn't make sense if you're dealing with Michael. But I don't think it ruins the episode. This episode definitely could have been cut by 20 minutes immediately and not missed a beat. We go to the other side, but oh, what's this? Whoops. Secret message from Admiral Vance. Guess what, guys? Could you guess what was going to happen? Could you guess when they were gone what the DMA was going to do to make this season more dramatic? Can you guess? Well, guess what? The DMA has now targeted Earth and its surrounding area in the Alpha Quadrant. As soon as Vance said Alpha Quadrant, I knew what he meant, and you knew what he meant if you watched it. Alpha Quadrant, to me, when you bring that up in Star Trek, that means Earth. It means Vulcan. Come on. I accidentally said Vulcan. That's what I'm used to, being someone born in 2223. But this is thousands of years, whatever. It's now Navarre now, I guess. I guess we just got to accept it. Not really a problem, just one of those things that change and old fogies like me need to put up with. But they said that the DMA is now going to cause a debris field that impacts Earth. I think they said the Moon, Titan, Navarre. And I think they left out a lot of things there. I think they left out Jupiter Station. Is that still around? Is Jupiter Station still around the year 3100 something? Is that still around, boys? Let me call them up right now and tell them that they're going to be gone in 1,000 years. Hold up. Okay, yeah. I'm not going to do that. I'm just joking. I could, but I'm not. I can't get the channel open. I don't have the authority to just open a subspace communications channel like that from the bridge. I can't do that right now. But I could if I would if I could. So all of a sudden now it's personal. And now you're feeling a little bit of what Book felt when his planet was destroyed. Are you feeling it now, Mrs. Burnham? And I think Rilak, the president, takes the liberty of informing the crew of the ship that DMA is now targeting what is essentially the home of a lot of the crew members. Unfortunate, but this should not affect your judgment. If you are in Starfleet, something like that should not emotionally compromise you. I'm just going to be honest. Your duties on board come way before personal matters like that. You have the option of leaving the ship before departure, but once you're on board, you were there. You were ride or die. You were dying on that hill. Okay, no ifs, ands, or buts. Forever hold your peace. But I bet next episode we're going to have a lot of emotional breakdowns about Earth potentially being destroyed. I guarantee it. I can see it now in my mind's eye. At the very end of our A-plot, Michael and the president come to an unnecessary agreement on something. But peppered throughout our A-plot, scenes with Saru and Tarina, which I was invested in. I think Saru cross Tarina could be a cool couple. You know, like what are these internet kids gonna call it when they ship people? Like they're gonna call it Saru-Rina or Tesseru or something? You know how they combine names? I don't know, don't ask me. I'm not from the ancient past. I'm just from the past with perspective to the show. If that makes sense. Multiple scenes with Tarina and Saru. It goes nowhere. We're just wasting time. It's funny, it's cute, but we're just wasting time. But then there's a scene where Adira comes back on the ship, and Adira, for whatever reason, is going with the Discovery beyond the Galactic Barrier. And there's this scene with Stamets talking to Adira, and I don't even know where to begin. It's one of those things where I don't know how to review it. I don't understand what happened. What am I missing? Was there a scene we were legitimately missing? Like, because Stamets has an awkward conversation with Adira with this strange music playing in the background. And they're being very, I guess, coy with each other is the word. But I can't figure out what the deal was. What happened between Adira and Stamets? Why is it so awkward? What? Do I just need to have kids to understand this? Because it is very obvious, if you were watching the show, that Adira is set up to be like an adoptive child of Stamets and Hugh, as it were. And am I just missing something that parents would just instinctively understand? I don't get it. I do not know what happened between Adira and Stamets in this episode. Just watch it. Watch it and tell me what's happening between Adira and Stamets. Why are we confiding in one another and having awkward dialogue with one another when seemingly nothing has gone wrong or right? It seems like nothing happened. It's just like seeing somebody walk up to you out of the blue that you know and then just start profusely serenading you with compliments, and then later on touching you on the arm and saying everything's going to be okay, and completely unprompted. And I don't know why. I don't understand it. Somebody help me. I'm just missing something. And maybe it's me, but I didn't get it. So leaving the disappointing, confused, and largely useless A-plot behind, and all the things that came along with it, we're going to delve deep down into the yummy center of the B-plot between Tarka and Book. And let me tell you, if we did not have the character of Tarka and the character of Book, this season would have been useless. It is sad that our main plot revolves around people who are not in Starfleet. Tarka is not in Starfleet, apparently, and neither is Book. Like, we are deriving our interesting plot points and drama from characters who are not a part of the ship. Okay, is a major infraction against designing a Star Trek show. I just have to say it, and I mean, we know we don't need drama from fighting. We don't need drama from being meanie heads. But that's how writers think, so we have to have our characters who are interesting not be from Starfleet. So here's the adventures of Tarka and Book going to an abandoned Emerald Chain work camp to find some antimatter. If you remember earlier, I said that the Discovery needs antimatter shielding to go through the barrier. So does Book and Tarka. However, they are way behind. I don't know how they're going to catch up. But Book and Tarka need to go back to this labor camp, I think they call it, a work camp from the Emerald Chain. If you don't remember, the Emerald Chain was a group of Orions and someone else who were basically slipping in under the rug when the Federation left to go scallywag up some guys and slap some people on the head. Remember that? And they did it very violently and stole a lot of things. That's the Emerald Chain. And we killed Osira last season. So now the Emerald Chain is in chains, hopefully. Anyway, you can see the previously calm and collected but fiery personality of Tarka gradually evaporate away. They return to this colony to get the antimatter that he had stashed away. And as he gets closer to this camp, we clue into the fact that this ties into his backstory. This is the Emerald Chain camp that he escaped from to find freedom within the Federation. He is obviously not over it. There is a PTSD element, and the actor portrays it beautifully. I was compelled from beginning to end with every scene with Tarka in this episode. I will say that Book takes a back seat, but Book definitely has a reason to be there, and I'll get into that in a moment. Tarka, you see, was a brilliant scientist, perhaps the most brilliant, being forced to work on new drive systems for Osira back in the battle days, in the dark days before the return of the Federation that we've seen now. In short order, I might add. You see, it's okay to have a character who is that emotionally broken and that tragic when they're from a time before the Federation. They're from the dark days. Okay, they're a leftover. They're inertia from the burn. He is essentially a product of the burn, Tarka, because Tarka's character is informed by the torture he went through, as is his friend that he had in the flashbacks in this episode, Oros. Okay, Oros is another character, much like Tarka, who was forced to work on propulsion systems for Osira. Now, disregarding the fact that there's many propulsion systems that do not use dilithium, we're just going to disregard that. We are working on dilithium alternative engine design. So we're just going to have to grant that, as well as other things. You'll see when they come up. And they become fast friends, okay? Neither of them had a friend before. We're explaining how we spent a lot of time alone, running numbers, as it were, reciting the digits of the golden ratio. I won't get into it here, but the golden ratio is a real thing. You can look it up. It's think of it kind of like pi for the uninitiated. The people like reciting the digits of pi. We're reciting the digits of the golden ratio. Pi having to do with equations involving circles and the like. Golden ratio having to do with, well, ratios between the sizes of things, such that the size of the subsequent shapes are half that of the shape before it, and so on and so on. Like a seashell, if you plot that on a graph. We don't need to get into it here, but it is a real thing. And they draw this symbol. It just looks like phi to me. It just looks like the symbol phi that you use in mathematics. And that's their symbol for heaven or something. Oros is basically explaining to Tarka in the flashback scene that he wants to actually create a multi-dimensional transporter. Okay? This is some straight up Iconian stuff right here for my my classic Star Trek watchers here. And they say something like, we can't get out of here, not with this on. And he's pointing to the little thing on the back of his head that's like the security device, I guess. We've seen these last season, by the way. And you couldn't walk a certain distance without that thing blowing up. And Oros is basically making it sound like there is nowhere we can go in this universe if we have this on. Keep that in mind. We can't escape if we have these on. So I'm building a teleporter to leave the universe. Asking the question to the viewer, where do you go in a dark world without the Federation, where there's nowhere to hide? In the whole universe, there's nowhere for you to hide, and you feel totally helpless. And you want to actually go to another universe. Okay, it's an interesting philosophical question. Where do you go when there's nowhere left to hide? And you have the technical know-how to build a multi-dimensional transporter, and better than that, you call the place you want to teleport to your word for heaven, which Oros calls Kaelis. Supposedly, it's a universe with no suffering, and what a concept, right? We're going to teleport to heaven. Not a concept that's completely alien to Star Trek, but one that's welcome in an otherwise very dry episode. And Tarka having felt that he has no real home in this universe either, wants to go with him to his new universe, to Kaelis with Oros. And it was touching, and I admit that when I watched this episode 3 times, of course. I never skipped any of the scenes with them. They seemed to have an emotional connection that worked, thanks in part to the acting on behalf of the person portraying Tarka. It really worked for me. I thought it was a great sequence all around. But it is let down by the fact that at the very end of their sequence, Tarka has to escape, their teleporter malfunctions or trips an alarm. And how are we getting out of here? The teleporter didn't work. Remember these things in the back of her neck that we got from the Emerald Chain? We can't escape with those on. And then I guess all you have to do is just shoot them off. Okay? Tarka takes a phaser rifle or disruptor, what have you, from one of the Emerald Chain guards and aims it at the back of his head and shoots off the thing. He shoots off the disc thingy, the coin in the back of his head, the control coin. He blasts off the control coin without dying. Why would you design this so that it can come off that easy? You want to design it so that if you tampered with it, it would explode. That's all you had to do to get out, was burn it off with a disruptor? So, instead of designing something that we could use to shoot off the control coin, we've instead elected to build a transporter to another universe. Instead of climbing over a knee-high wall, we decided to walk all the way around the world to get to the other side. That's what this is telling me. It's very, very odd. Like I said, the episode feels good, thinks bad. If you catch my drift. But I'll take it. I was emotionally invested to a certain degree. Anyway, so now Book and Tarka have a rapport again. We're friends again. I know Tarka just commandeered Book's ship and almost started an intergalactic incident, but they shared their pain with each other. Share your pain, as it were. They both lost something. Tarka lost his only friend and his true home. Booker lost his literal home. But we're all okay now. We have a mission. Tarka has revealed his innermost feelings to Book. He's cracked the hard eggshell of his mind. He's no longer an impenetrable wall. He's vulnerable now. And when you make yourself vulnerable, you're putting trust in somebody. And that person in this episode is Book. So now, somebody knows his secrets, his weaknesses. Book now owns him in a way, emotionally. We are now invested. Our goals align. We're no longer in combat mode. We are going to the DMA. We're going beyond it. We're going through the Galactic Barrier with this antimatter that we found at the work camp, by the way. We did get the antimatter, the programmable antimatter. We are putting it on our ship. We are going through. We do not care if we die. There is nothing left for us here. Book and Tarka are very much on a mission that will either see them succeed and save billions of lives, or see them die. And all the differences are now melted away. We are now of one mind. We are going through that barrier. However, we're way behind Michael and co. Michael is already on the other side at the end of this episode. And at the end of this episode, Book and Tarka haven't even started. How are they going to catch up? And most importantly, now that we've revealed what happened with Oros, and how he may or may not have transported to another dimension, does that have something to do with the DMA? Might. Maybe he transported to Kaelis, as he calls it, and the people who designed the DMA are from there originally. Who knows? Maybe it's a breadcrumb trail that leads us right off a cliff. Maybe it's a red herring. Maybe it's a normal herring that we eat and then are revealed to us the fact that the plot did make sense. That's the opposite of a red herring, right? A herring that makes sense. So, that was the Galactic Barrier. To wrap it up, a few good scenes, a lot of bad scenes, a lot of pointless scenes, a lot of strange pieces of dialogue that just seem to not mean anything. Like how we need to jump the ship to the edge of the barrier because beyond the barrier the mycelial network doesn't exist. And I could have swore someone said that the mycelial network goes all across the known universe. I thought I heard that. Maybe I was wrong. I'm not going back in and check. I'm not watching any more of the old... I'm not watching one more episode of this show that I don't have to watch. But we need to get 4 light years between... We need to get 4 light years before the edge of the barrier. And then Stamets is like, it's not an exact science. And I accidentally got us 9 light years away. And then they make a point of saying it. You owe me 5 light years. And I'm just thinking it's the year 3,100 and something. Surely we got a conventional warp drive that can easily do 9.999. Like, what is the... Like, really? Like, we're complaining about 5 light years. It's only going to take a few minutes, right? If we got... I mean, conventional warp surely can efficiently do 9.99999, right? You know it goes up logarithmically. Like, when you're going above 9.999, power requirements are huge. But I'm sure power supply is huge in the future, and the distance traveled is immense. So I don't think 5 light years is going to be enough of a difference to warrant having it in the script. They say we need to go not 4 light years. Oops, I did 9 away. You owe me 5. What are you talking about? Why is that in there? Why is half the scenes with Michael and the President in here? What are we doing? What are we gaining? You know what? I think it would be immature to say that we have these emotional plots just because the writers are stupid. I don't think they're stupid. I think they know exactly what they're doing. I think they're putting in these emotion scenes where people explain their emotions to each other to stall for time. I think they don't have a lot of ideas for this season. I think we're stalling for time. I think a lot of these scenes are pointless on purpose. I think they don't have a lot. I think they wrote this season down on a napkin and turned it in and said, that's what we're going with. Really? You wrote it in one afternoon? Yep, we're going with it. Okay, well, we better have a lot of scenes of people crying and hugging and getting all touchy-feely so that we can do the old stall for time, stalling the engines. Visually, more interesting than the past few episodes. Like I said, an interesting sequence plays out when we go through the barrier. Sound-wise, not so much. Apart from the inexplicably awkward-sounding music that played when Adira met Stamets again this episode, which I had no investment in whatsoever because I frankly did not understand it one jot. Audio, standard, not good, not interesting, not memorable. Visually kind of cool. Philosophically, was its strong point if you just watch the sequences between Oros and Tarka. Ham-fisted effort on behalf of the crew to inject a few pointless lines to say that they said something. We're just ticking boxes here. Everybody had a line, right? Yeah, you had a line, right? Yeah, I want to go skiing instead of dying here. Cool. You'd know what I meant if you watched the episode. And also we had Bryce leaving the crew. Remember that guy? No? He'd be forgiven for not knowing who he is, but he left the crew with no explanation given. He just says his goodbyes to Saru. I don't know why he's leaving, and frankly, I don't know why he was there, because he didn't do anything. He was just Bryce. He was a guy on the bridge. We're 4 seasons in, and we don't know a lot of people's names, because they don't get to do anything. And when they almost got to do something, what they were going to do got stolen by Michael. For what it's worth, I think it was Bryce himself that had something stolen. He talked about surfing in the episode Anomaly. Go back and watch the episode Anomaly. He was talking about surfing as a way to get out of this field that they were in when they were close to the DMA, and then he was explaining how to do it, and then Michael just did it. Michael just did what he said to do instead of letting him take the chair and do it, which would have been cool. Maybe that's why he's leaving. Maybe the actor finally had enough. He said, I had enough. I'm done with Michael stealing my thunder. I'm getting the hell out of here. And now he's gone. You won't be missed. Because you didn't really have anything to do. Okay? It's not your fault. But it's someone's fault. And this was the Galactic Barrier, episode 10 of season 4 of Discovery. We got 3 episodes left. They better pull a rabbit out of their hat right now. Right now. Okay? We are running out of time to find out what's going on with the so-called 10C. And I'm giving this episode a pretty okay 6. It's slightly better than the previous episode, but not enough to bring it up to a 6.5. Sorry, we're going straight 6. I didn't feel terrible watching it. I felt a little bit better than before I watched it, just because I got to see some cool sequences, and I got to meet this Oros character. You're getting a 6. And I'll see you guys next time. God, I hope next week isn't Picard and Discovery at the same time. What am I going to do? This episode's already going to be late. You know I get these episodes a day later than everybody else because of how far away in space I am. Oh my gosh. I get this episode a day late. And not only that, I'm distracted by something else here. I have to play this thing. What am I going to do?